Hello, this is Infrastructure Leader Shankar Chandran here. I am here to present a short video about shared services. I come with 20 years of experience on the infrastructure services, working for global companies like Hewlett-Packard, IBM, and AT&T Communication Services. Right? In my view, it's important for people to understand and learn how important shared services here are to be successful and how to run a delivery center at low cost. So for you to run that in a low cost, it's important you understand how well you design a shared services model, right? And I will share my experience and how I did that in the last 20 years on a short video. To set up a shared services infrastructure strategy, the first thing that you need to do is logically design the ITIL framework. You need to understand that because that's the standard wish list that people are going to talk about. And you can call it as a referential engagement model that people talk about, right? You talk about selling your services, customers say, do you comply by ITIL framework? So first thing that you should talk about is how well your shared services complies by the ITIL framework. So to give you a short explanation about what this ITIL framework is, we're talking about trying to break the whole processes, end-to-end processes into various stages, where we're talking about incident management, where we're talking about the stage number 2 basically, where a trouble ticket is coming to you and you are trying to find a solution to it for the first time. You don't know what the solution is, so you're trying to find a solution for the first time. And then we go into the problem stage, where you've given a solution, right? But that's not fixed the whole problem, right? And so it needs a lot more skill and a lot more deeper dive coming in from expertise to find the overall solution to the whole ticket that's coming. Then finally, you need to have an overall process in place that you are going to execute at various stages of this stage 1 and stage 2. And finally, what you should not forget about is we are doing these 3 stages to be successful in stage number 4. So we just spoke about stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. But there's one stage prior to this, that's called a stage 0. And that's actually the stage that clients would interface with, either telephonically, or either through ticket, or even through automatic ticketing, or even through phone call. So that's called the help desk. In simple traditional words, is a help desk, but in ITIL framework, if it has little embedded skill set that comes in, we're talking about service desk, right? So we're talking about stage 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And not to forget the change, where we've come across various issues, and then to fix that issue, we need to embed or give a little change to the environment so that the whole thing gets fixed. That's called the change environment. Not to forget, these are the 4 things that you need to execute, the 4 stages or 5 stages we've got for you to be successful in assurance. So that gives you a new, word, what service assurance in broad terms are. To summarize what service assurance is, so we have got an infrastructure outsourcing business that's given to someone, and that person's responsibility is to just manage the infrastructure as is, without making a change, right? So if you look at all these 4 components, this is the component where no change is involved. That entire scope falls into assurance. Then we're talking about scope of services which can change the infrastructure, which involves change management process, and then we're talking about standardization programs that can pretty much come back and tweak things here and there to comply by the standardization philosophy. And then we're talking about integration projects where we're trying to evolve new technologies because it's come in the market and that would bring business value to us, how we're going to integrate that into the existing environment. And then finally, the standardization of architecture philosophy, where how well we comply by the architecture that has been laid down by the corporate group, what is need to be done to evolve the architecture into the new architecture. So these are components which are going to give a change in the environment. So those pretty much steps fall into service delivery. In the next slide, we're talking about how we're going to overlay this ITIL framework over the infrastructure components that I'm going to share now. So we have got the service desk stage 1, we're talking about incident, problem, change, and then we're talking about availability management, and then we're also talking about escalation management. Let's overlay that out here on the standard framework. Now this is the service portfolio components of an infrastructure that every leader would have on this chart before making a decision on what he's going to implement, where and at what stages. So we're talking about account management, we're talking about asset management, and user services, which is pretty much business PPO, or in simple language, we're talking about help desk. And then we're talking about server management systems, and then storage, print queue management, network services, enterprise security management, and then application management. These are the broad service domains we're talking about, and then we're talking about services that happens. So when we're designing a shared services organization, what's important is we're going to take each of the service domain and then ensure that you apply an ITIL framework that you have discussed or that we have seen in the last presentation or last slide, to ensure that each of these service domains complies by that seamlessly. So the moment you do that, what really happens is there's a sense of ownership that comes in within the portfolio of services that you have outsourced to someone, right? So team, the moment you bring the ITIL framework, we're talking about ownership with the respective team, and then a seamless handover happening to the other team. Now that's pretty much what we're talking about, how we bring in a shared services, right? So let's take a classical example here, that you want to take one service domain, which is the server management here, and then how we're going to apply the ITIL framework that we discussed in the previous slide to be successful as a leader in the shared services infrastructure. For you to be successful in setting up a shared services in the area of server management, the first thing that's important is someone who can be customer facing or who can be watching using network tools to capture the alarm when something really goes wrong, right? Those are called the server operations people, right? They're the operations people using the tools who are real-time watching the service. So they are the front end and they need to be there. So that's the first thing. So then when you relate that to your ITIL framework, we're talking about incident management and service desk combined in one form. And then we're talking about the deep level team. We're talking about the problem management team, which is pretty much the server management team we're talking about. And then pretty much we're talking about data component support and server planning support. We're talking about change management group. And then pretty much when we talk about availability management and escalation management, that sits in the consolidated efforts in the area of account management, right? See how we have done. We've taken the whole service management up, and then we spun off the escalation management, and then we spun off the so-called availability management outside. So there is a separation of duties that you've achieved, but you've also consolidated the whole function of availability management and escalation management into one group, because it's a very specialized area for you to be successful if you're going to be meeting your requirements with the customer. You're going to repeat that whole step out here if you're going to do this in any other place. And as I said, you're going to spun off this same availability and escalation out here, so that they are the neutral people and they will keep. Now they will share metrics with you if there's a deviation, so as a leader, you can actually go back and interface with your operations management team to correct and take necessary actions. So this is pretty much how you do shared services model on an infrastructure space consisting of various service domains. Now I'll show how they're related in one single slide, so you're able to correlate in my split slides over the last two slides I exchanged. So moving to the next slide, let me show how the correlation works, right? So we spoke about server management here, and we said the production server management team retained 1, 2, and then 3, and then moved the escalation team and consolidated these two service components into the account management team. Similarly did the network services, right? So when you remove these from all these components, then the account management team is formed. Similarly, the architecture integration is retained within the service domain, and that is grouped. Maybe 10 people or 12 people form a group, and that's called the architecture team. So that's pretty much how a shared services organization in the infrastructure space is actually established. And that's the kind of strategy that you need to understand, and that's here I'm presenting, so that tomorrow when you are a leader, this information would help you apply the strategy that I've shared with you to be a successful leader in the future. Thanks for being with me, and if you have any feedback, kindly share that with me. Thank you.